Wanting to learn how to cut a cake? In this video, I'm going to show you two different ways to cut a cake, the traditional method and the party method. You're going to need a flat surface like the back of a sheet pan or a cutting board. You're going to need a long knife, so like a knife that's at least 6 inches in length, a towel. You'll need some warm water, a place to put your cake slices, so either a plate. I'm going to use cling film for mine as well, so I can wrap mine and store mine for later. Not sponsored, by the way. And then if your knife isn't sharp, make sure you grab yourself a knife sharpener and give your knife a couple of passes so that way your knife will glide right through your cake. Then you'll want to heat up your knife, so I'm going to put my knife into my warm water. If you want to really impress your party guests, bring out the kitchen torch and heat up your knife that way, but hot water works just fine. And you make sure that you want to wipe it down so that way you don't have any water going into your cake. For my cake, I'm using a 3-layer 5-inch round cake. This cake is just been out of the freezer, maybe about 10 minutes or so. I like to cut my cakes cold to get even slices, but it's up to you how you want to cut your cake. I'm going to start with the traditional method by cutting my cake in half. To get really clean slices, you can put your knife back in warm water and clean it off after every single pass. It's really up to you. I'm just gonna get my sheet pan ready and my knife, my towel ready so I can wipe everything off to have a nice clean knife, and then turn my cake toward me and then cut my cake in half again. This is gonna give me 2 quarters of a cake, so I'm only doing half of my cake the traditional way. From here, decide if you want to have 8 slices or 12 slices. So for a 12 slice cake, you want to cut each quarter into 3 different slices. So kind of eyeball it, you can mark it. With your cake being solid, you can kind of mark the top and no one will notice. And then just again, even all the way down, push your knife through the middle and just cut it into 3 slices. So when cutting your cake this way, you would wind up with 12 triangular slices, which is kind of the traditional way of cutting a cake. So you can see I'm going to use a fork here to separate, and if you needed to use a fork, you can use a fork to pull that out, and then you can have a nice even layer that you can see all of those layers. This is again 12 slices of cake. You can also cut slices bigger and then cut your quarters in half. This would give you 8 slices of cake. For again, this is a 5-inch 3-layer cake. This you could feed 8 people a really big piece of cake. I think 8 slices is a little large for me personally, but you know, who am I to judge people? Give your counter a bit of a wipe down for your cling film. So for me, this cake, I was bringing it to work, so I wanted to store it for later. And so cling film is a really great way to wrap up your cakes and freeze for a later date. And so you want to basically get yourself a large piece of cling film, probably 12 inches or so, and then use your tools to take your slices of cake and place them onto your cling film roughly in the middle, so that way you can have cling film on the bottom and the top and on the sides, and then just wrap it up. It's kind of easy and simple, and then these can store again in the freezer for months at a time if you want, so you can have a piece of cake whenever you want. And then just one more time, because it went kind of quick, so you want to get maybe a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 piece of cling film. Find your slice of cake, use your knife and fingers or knife and fork to move your cake to your cling film. Put it in the middle so you have cling film on all sides, so that way you can wrap it nicely. Here I was a little close to the edge, so I had to use my finger to put the cake in and then just wrap it up, so that way it is nice and sealed. And again, these can freeze for about at least a month, and you just pull one out when you want to defrost it. For the party method, you want to cut your cake kind of into slabs. So I like to cut my cake in half and then cut the first slab, so you can see it's about 1 inch from the edge, so each piece is about 1 inch from the edge there. When your cake is cold, it usually won't fall over. My cake is a little warm because I am doing this in 90-degree heat because my air went out in Tucson, Arizona. Very hot. And so you want to basically use your straight edge to lift that slab of cake onto your straight edge, and then use your knife to cut rectangles. And so you can cut, I like to cut 4 rectangles for a 5-inch cake. You could cut 5 rectangles from a 6-inch cake. You can cut 6 rectangles from an 8-inch cake. It's really up to you. But this just really cuts really nice, even rectangles, and then people can choose how much frosting they want for their piece of cake. Since I'm taking this to work, I'm still going to wrap mine in cling film. So again, a 12 by 12 piece of cling film, grab my slice of cake, pop it in the middle, and then just wrap up all sides. So this allows people to really look at what they're getting, and if they want to choose one with more frosting or less frosting, they can choose that. If you're actually cutting this cake for a party, just transfer all your slices to each person's plate as you would any other slice of cake. So it's, just pick it up with your knife and move it, and then voila, you have slices of cake. I like to clean off my flat surface with my bench scraper so that way my cake slices are just nice and pretty. It's up to you how clean you want your surfaces to be. And I'm gonna kind of reverse this here. So I'm gonna put my straight edge or my flat surface behind it. I don't recommend this because it's really hard to do, but you wanna basically get your knife under, wiggle your slab free, and then tilt it back onto your flat surface. I did this the first time, but you couldn't see it because I'm right-handed, so my camera was in the wrong spot. When I reach the rounded part of my cake, I like to cut them into threes because if you cut them any smaller than that, you end up with basically all frosting for one slice and all cake for another slice. And then if you have a large part, you can also cut these slabs in half again, giving you 6 slices instead of 3. I like to keep my cakes in odd number of sponges so I can cut through the sponge. So I have a layer and a half of sponge and then 1 layer of frosting. Again, you can wrap these up in cling film or put them on a plate. But here you can see the size difference between a half slice of cake and a full slice of cake. So if you're having a party with a lot of kids, I would go with half slices, but for adults, I would go with full slices, but it depends on you and your guest. So in using the party method, you can get up to 14 full slices of cake or 28 half slices of cake. Remember, this is only a 5-inch 3-layer cake. That is a lot of cake that you can give your guests, and I think everyone would be happy. For the more traditional style of cake cutting, you could get around 12 slices for a 5-inch cake. You can see the difference here. The 8 slices, you're going to get a lot of cake. The 12 slices, you're going to get a little bit thinner of cake. Again, it depends on what you need for your party. So I hope this video helps you guys when you're ordering a cake or making a cake yourselves. I hope it helps you kind of plan ahead to think how many slices of cake you need, therefore can order or create the appropriate size of cake. Remember, I post videos every second and fourth Friday of the month, and if you like this content and want to see more of my videos, you guys know what to do. And I'll see you guys in the next video.